welcome to another episode of Interlink, a podcast by the Center for New Economic Studies at OP Jindal Global University. At Interlink, we aim to break down intellectual barriers and approach key issues from diverse policy and research perspectives through deep conversations on the evolving social, political, and economic landscape. In this episode, we focus on Kashmir's urban communities, where traditional livelihoods like boat building, fishing, and artisanal crafts intersect with ongoing development efforts. We explore how these groups balance cultural preservation with modern demands, examine why their perspectives often go unrecorded in policy and academic discussion, and consider practical approaches to ensure their voices remain a part of the city's future. We are delighted to be joined today by Nazan Ustaki, Assistant Manager at Ideas Office at OP Jindal University and a Senior Research Analyst. His work focuses particularly on marginality and identity in the Kashmiri context, and he has done extensive fieldwork in various communities to understand how culture functions in a more modern context. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Shivali. It's for having speaking to you on this podcast. So
To start with a general question based on your research, you talked about how smart city narratives often sideline traditional ecological knowledge. Could you also expand on what you understand by this modern narrative in particularly the Kashmiri context? And also, what kind of tensions can you expect to see when such livelihoods, such as the Hanji communities and modernity intersect?
see, the problem is not with the modernity as per se, like the concept of modernity. The problem is when you are kind of imposing your concept of modernity on a certain community, on a certain place. That is where the problems arise. For example, if we take the community that I am working with, the Hanji community, which are regarded as the people who are the custodians of water bodies in Kashmir. So this, speaking about smart city project, like whenever you develop any kind of project, like it should be a bottoms up approach. It should come from bottom, like even if it is a top down approach, but it should be as inclusive to include all the stakeholders into that. Now, when we talk about any kind of project, for example, cleaning of the Dal, for example, the smart city project, which particularly focusing around the Boulevard Road, not the other parts of the city, the parts which affect these communities. So we understand that these communities are not being taken into consideration at that time. So we understand this is the concept of modernity. You want to create modern infrastructure, you want to create modern technology, you have modern technologies and whatnot. Like you are there, they are at your disposal. But the traditional knowledge systems, they are indispensable when you are working in something, in a place like Kashmir. How I would say that the government has been trying to clean the dulls since I was a very young child. I have been hearing from that time, like government is doing this and that and cleaning the dull. It has spent like millions of rupees in cleaning the dull. Yet today we see that the contractors who are employed to clean the dull sublet these to the Hanji community members, and they are the people who, like in their boats, clean the dull. So you can understand these people in our fieldwork. We found that people were like, we are the custodians, we know how to clean it, we always used to keep it clean. So the problem is that you are not including those people into the policy framework. You could have gotten, like traditional knowledge systems have that thing, they know how to. It's not only when modern knowledge systems and traditional knowledge systems meet, the synthesis is something beautiful. It might have been a different synthesis over there. I'll give you an example. What During my field work, I came across an RTI. So we always regarded these people. When I say these people, I say the community, Hanji community. The Hanji community was regarded by particularly the academic class. It was by the academicians. It was a narrative they had created that these are the reason for the pollution of Dal. So I came across an RTI which said that out of 44 million liters of garbage that goes into the Dal, 70%, only 1 million liters of the garbage is from this community. So 43 million liters of the garbage comes from Srinagar, and 70% of the garbage of Srinagar that finds its way into the Dal through one way or the other. So when you are making up a project and you are not taking those people into consideration who live in that place or who belong to that place, who are inhabitants of that place, that is where this tussle between these things start. And that is, I believe, like, if you are trying to impose your concept of modernity, that is where you will find an opposing force for that. So there should be the concept of modernity that is in line with the traditional knowledge system and the other knowledge systems, be whatever we call them. Like if you call that modern knowledge system, I have no problem with that, but it should not come at a cost with the traditional knowledge systems. So that is how I feel like this should. And then when we see the tensions that arise with this community, and it is bound to happen when you don't consider those people part, the stakeholders of that place, then the tensions are there, they will arise there. You clean the dull, you remove those people, you relocate those people, saying that they are the pollutants, but it's more about the law of aesthetics. You just want that these small houseboats should not be there. So then the tensions, they will automatically arise between the communities.
So clearly, I mean, through your fieldwork, as you described, the community does have a very deep bond with the space that they are occupying. So in these type of situations, when such policies are created, how do you see such communities adapting to the way that the government is undertaking urban planning and these imperatives?
Let's start with the rehabilitation of this community. It happened like in 2004, one of the major rehabilitations happened. So when the community was rehabilitated, they were not rehabilitated. Some of the members were not rehabilitated to much farther areas. Most of the community was like relocated to a very far a farther area. And I'll take an example of a small part of that community. Then we'll go into the other part also. So what happened? There is a fisherman colony in Habak, very close by to the Dal, just like 15 minutes or 10 minutes walking distance towards Dal. So you'd say that they had access to their livelihood, right? So Dal was their livelihood. They would have access to their livelihood, leave alone the community that was relocated to Bimina. That's very far, 20 kilometers from the Dal. So we are talking about the community that was relocated just adjacent to the Dal, 10 minutes walk. So it's like easily everybody would say they have like access to their livelihood, they have access to their field grazing, not grounds but water. They used to get that algae from the water for their plant, for the cows and the cattle. So but what happened, they developed psychological issues. They developed like there were very various issues that had arisen from that. When we went to the field, when we spoke to them, they said that they couldn't sleep at night, like because they couldn't adapt to the and even today most of them could not adapt to that thing. Like it has been more than 20 years, 2 decades, and the elder generation, they are not being able to reconcile with the terms that they have been relocated from water to land, even though it's just a short distance. And then the second part is the people who were relocated to a very farther distance to Bimina, they lost their livelihood, they lost access to their livelihood. You can't come 20 kilometers every day in the morning and you start at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. So you cannot, that's not feasible. So they lost that sense of belonging. They still have that, but it was lost. They did not have access to the traditional ecosystem where they lived, where they were born and brought up, and they could not come in terms with that. And we can see that, like when we went to the field, we can see they have that they had a longing to see that the as they used to see it, not as the person who is going and looking at it, but as a person who used to live there. So that is like how deep their bond was. They would say that we would clean this thing. And when you ask them the question of polluting the Dal, they'll always say, why would we pollute the Dal? We are the people who take sustenance out of it. Is there any like a commonsensical question, like how, why would a person who is deriving a sustenance from something pollute that thing? So these people were like, we did not pollute it, and which is true also. Like I told you about the RTA, which is true. We have sewage treatment plants, but they do not work on the capacity that they have to. Like what is the capacity? They did not work on it, and then we blame it on a single community, and then we can see that how disappointing it is that these people are being blamed for something they do not do, and they have been relocated also because of that. They were saying, it was said that they are the polluters, and they were relocated, yet the Dal is not clean. So that is the issue. This is a tussle that will remain, and these people will be yearning to go back to Dal, and which is currently not possible, like in this scenario.
So, I mean, clearly we can see how such policies affect not just their livelihood, but also their lives. And so, similarly, you've also researched about the Kashmiri Pathans, and you've noted that younger generations, especially because of how the education system is structured, are moving from the language of Pashto to Kashmiri and Urdu. So, how do you think these linguistic shifts also play a role in transforming their culture and particularly the erosion of their culture?
See, the Pathans are like it is a close-knit community, if I would say. It is an uh, they have a strong sense of history and culture within themselves. So if something like this happens, it's very deeply painful for them. So what in our fieldwork we saw that the younger generation, since there are two things we need to see in that. One, there is no access to their language. Their language is not taught anywhere in their schools, even though they might have teachers who belong to that community, but they speak in Urdu and English. So when a young boy, a young girl, a young student enrolls in a school and he is not being taught their language, it's all verbal, and but he knows how to write English or how to write Urdu, and his classmates are Kashmiris, so he will catch up to that, and he will not be perfectly eloquent in his uh, speech with his own language. So what happens gradually when they grow up, the language loses its grip, and we can see that the language loses the speakers, and it we can say it fears an extinction. The language fears an extinction, which is a cause of concern not only among the Pathans but among everybody. So the main reason is that they are not being given the education in their own vernacular language, which is a fundamental right, and right to, sorry, which is the part of right to education, which is our fundamental right. They are not being taught in their vernacular languages. They are being taught in Urdu and Kashmiri and English. So they are well versed in different languages. Now, the second thing there is the kind of cultural assimilation they have gone through. Pathans, being small community, have dealings with the ethnically Kashmiri people. So Kashmiris have a distinct language. Pathans have a distinct language. When you have dealings with the majority community, the culture trying their culture seeps into you. You try to assimilate into that. So what happens? Their dress has changed. Their eating habits have changed, and moreover, the culture is being assimilated. The Kashmiri culture and the Pathan culture is being mixed in those areas, and you cannot see a difference between the two, which is very alarming for them. And then the language is, again, when they speak Kashmiri, they speak Urdu from beginning, they lose grip over the Pashto language, and since there's no script for that, that is also an issue. There's no script for Pashto language. They're not taught. There is a script, but they're not taught that. So that also becomes an issue, and which is the reason of concern among the community members, particularly the elders, who fear that coming generations might not. It will be like they'll be like normal other Pathan communities in India. For example, we have Pathans in Bihar, we have Pathans in UP, but they do not speak Pashto. They are Pathans by name only. So right now, what makes these Pathans distinct is the language and the culture. And if that is assimilated with the Kashmiris, there's no like difference between Kashmiris and the Pathans then. So that is what they fear, and that is like um, that is the issue of that is the issue of concern for these communities, the elders of these communities.
So, as we've been discussing the policy decisions, and you also mentioned that we need a bottom-up approach. So, there's becoming a greater emphasis on participation in governance. So from this perspective and also from your fieldwork, to what extent do you think the policies that Srinagar has implemented have succeeded or failed in safeguarding minority cultures? And do you think that's even a consideration when they bring these about?
See, minority cultures, I would not say it's a minority culture. Like Kashmiri culture is a majority culture, be that of any religion that person belongs to, be that of any community that person belongs to. The culture at the end remains Kashmiri. So it's not an, like, I won't say it has succeeded or failed in safeguarding that culture. But the thing is that it has not been able to kind of provide an alternative, like in those spaces. What I mean is that if you are trying this, for example, smart street project, we take this project up, it meant that there will be um, it will try to, for example, widen the roads. The only thing I can see in smart city project is that roads were constructed in haphazard manner. There would be planning, they know what kind of planning they have done. Otherwise I do not see its attack, or it's not an attack on the culture, it's not safeguarding the culture. There's no role of culture in that. So smart city is just a development project, it's not a holistic project, it's just a development project. And I think they have failed in certain areas there. Like for example, when we take up the community, because they have not taken community voices into consideration. It has come from the top, it is bureaucratic in nature. They have like signed the decrees, like the farmans, that we want this to be done, and it has been done. It's a developmental project where they have failed, where they have succeeded. In certain cases they have, in certain cases they have not. And but it has nothing to do with the culture. It has not preserved the culture, it has not attacked the culture, it has not safeguarded the culture in any way. So in that, but one more thing is that there is no participatory urban governance. No. In smart city project, you would not see participation of the people. It's not inclusive in any way. It's, if we can say, it's exclusive, it's a top to down approach, and that's it.
So, I mean, going off of that, how you mentioned that there's no participation. If we were to look ahead to future policy initiatives, what kind of pathways or suggestions would you have about how the Kashmiri government can kind of reconcile its need for development and modernization while also preserving and making sure that communities' rights and their interests are upheld?
See, the when we speak of policies, whenever the policies are created in the boardrooms. They are not created on the field. They are created on the boardrooms. But what happens is that they are taken to the field. The feedback is taken. Like if you want, there is like when we say participatory action policies. Like this is that people will come, they'll give their feedback. People will incorporate that feedback, go back to boardroom and see where they lack, or if there is a need to change it. But in this case, there has not been, like, this whole step has been missed out. This step of participation, grassroots level participation, this has been missed out. They have created the policies and they have implemented them. They have not asked for opinions, they have not asked for, like, and they have not asked for wills of the people. So it is like they came and they started implementing, and which we see in any policy which is not like policies particularly which focus on the people, which have implications on people. These kind, it's not kind of a policy of right to education is being made and they will be asking people, should we give right to education or not? That is the necessity. But when you are making a developmental policy which will impact the generations, so you have to understand you are going through a difficult arena. It's not only a phase, it's whole together a social setting. It might get disturbed somewhere. You are trying to create something new. So if you are trying to develop something new, you have to understand that people have to be like involved in that also. You have to take, for example, traders. The When the smart city project was being built, the roads were being built, a lot of places they were dug out, and traders could not, like, they had no avenues of trade. The shops were open, but the footfall was very less because of that. So you have to understand those things also. You have to take into consideration those things also. So I feel that if we any kind of policy that is being made that would have impact on the people, particularly like policy developmental policies, so it should like have a clause that it should have participatory action also. No doubt sometimes you call people in the boardroom and you tell them, okay, what are your views? Those views are never implemented. You have to go into for example, I'll give you the anecdote from the field. In the field, we went of this Hanji community with the members of this community. What happened, like we were speaking and they said, we have knowledge of this water body. We know each and every corner of this water body. Yet when these people employ the guards, water guards and the fisheries, they do not consider us. They do not consider that people, and which I feel these people should have been given a kind of reservation in the jobs also, because they know the water bodies. They know, where people illegally fish, where they illegally put out their nets. So these people have that knowledge. So these people should have been taken into consideration when they were like giving jobs or framing policies regarding that. So these are small examples we could see from these initiatives also, like public planning and policy development. So these people are not being taken into consideration, particularly those who are directly affected by that community, by that development. So the communities that are directly affected should be like taken into consideration at like in these policy documents or policy formations.
Have you, I mean, during your fieldwork and your research, have you ever come across a kind of case study where participation of those communities was considered, and what kind of lessons that can be taken from that example and implemented otherwise?
See, during my field work, I have not come across exactly, particularly that where it was considered, but there are certain smaller things where they consider these people. For example, cleaning the dull, they would speak to those people. How do you clean the dull? What is the process of cleaning the dull? Or for instance, in the process, there was a rehabilitation, and a dam was created across the river Kishanganga. People were involved in that. People were asked, like, you was like, because people would be rehabilitated, they would be relocated. So people were involved in that from day one when the policy was formulated and it was taken to the people. So people raised their concerns. These are the concerns, and those concerns were addressed at that time. So not in my fieldwork, but I could see it in different places. These the policies were taken to the field to test them and to ask people for their reviews, and then they were implemented. But in case of Srinagar, I do not see, I have not come across. Maybe there is, but I have not come across the people like who were taken into consideration while these policies were being framed.
Those are the end of the questions we have. If there's any further comments or something additional you'd like to add to the conversation.
Not particularly, but we'd say that during our field work, we would see lack of interest from the like officials in acknowledging the fact that these people also belong to the community and these people have knowledge. For example, like when we speak about officials, if I speak about the lower and higher bureaucracy, both, they do not acknowledge that a person who is illiterate can be knowledgeable. So that is the problem that needs to be changed. If that could have been changed at that time, we would have seen a different phase. Like if we see, like it's not about literacy, like literacy is not a parameter for knowledge. There are traditional knowledge systems as we discussed. So we have to, if that changes, if somehow someday that changes, like we will see a completely different picture of development all across the country, not only in Kashmir. So that is so one comment I could see in my fieldwork, I could sense in my fieldwork, even when speaking to bureaucrats and like the officials. I could sense that maybe if I can call it arrogance for the lack of the word, that arrogance in them, that these people do not, they are not literate. How would they be knowledgeable? They do not understand the word TEK, traditional knowledge system, sorry, traditional ecological knowledge or traditional knowledge systems. So that is the problem. We should make like this should be in the syllabus of bureaucrats. I don't know if it is. I've never like had a chance to ask somebody, but yes, this if this should be implemented in that way.
Thank you so much for all of your insights. about the resilience of such communities in Kashmir and also about obviously the importance of considering their perspectives while creating the policies and implementing a more bottom up approach. It's been very enlightening to hear about your fieldwork and your research. So, thank you so much for offering such thoughtful perspectives.
It was a privilege to talk to you. Thank you. Hope to like share more next time. Thank you. Thanks a lot.